Welcome to the 17th episode of the Student Telecaster build. Technically, it's going to be called Part 16 because the last episode I split into two and I did 15A, 15B because it was really recorded all at once. Anyway, so Part 16, what we were going to talk about is the level and crowning of the frets. But before we go there, let me give you a sneak peek to one of the guitars that I've been building in the class for demonstrations. And that is the green Swamp Ash Strat with the curly maple neck, rosewood fretboard, Floyd Rose, rail tail, bridge, and some special wiring configurations that we'll talk about in another episode. But this guitar is beautiful. This is Fiona, by the way. Fiona is a guitar that the school is going to auction off pretty soon in May, for whenever you're watching this. This is May 2019. And it's going to be used as a fundraiser for the luthier program at the school. And I haven't mentioned the school before because I just don't want a conflict of interest, you know, what I'm doing on my YouTube channel. But since it's an advertisement for what they are doing for fundraising, I will tell you it's Red Rocks Community College, the luthier program in Lakewood, Colorado. And that's where I'm teaching the guitar building class, where I require the students to build a Stratocaster or a Telecaster in their first guitar build, just to kind of get the basics and the fundamentals of guitar building down. They're great instruments to start with and a lot to learn. So anyway, I sped up this one in class, and I've got another Stratocaster that I'm going to be doing demos on for the last remaining few weeks of class, but I'm speeding this one up so we can do photo shoots and get the marketing campaign going for, for the school for the auction of Fiona for fundraising purposes. I'll try to give you guys information on subsequent episodes of the auction. We're planning on doing it as an worldwide eBay auction, basically. And the intent is to start the auction so that it closes out on May 18th. That's when the end of semester exhibit is, and it thought it'd be really cool to have it end during the exhibit and maybe awards presentations for the students. Then they can announce who won the auction of the Fiona Strat style guitar. So it could be pretty exciting. I'll keep you posted. Getting to this episode, we're talking about frets. We're talking about the final leveling and crowning. I don't do this earlier in the build process because I want the wood just to kind of sit and rest and kind of equalize itself, and we have plenty of time to get to it. So now is the time where I really need to do it, and that's before I do the final setup, adding all the hardware, mounting the neck, and things like that. Just to kind of update you on the bodies, last time you saw the bodies, the last thing I needed to do was the final sanding and buffing, and now that is complete. So we have the lizard eye guitar here, which has been named Liza, L-I-Z-A, Liza. Will be this one, and it's got that beautiful super dark green back that you can still see the grain if you're looking at the right angle. So that one is beautiful, ready for the next step. And then this is the kind of space shot scene there, and that's turned out nice. Got the pearloid binding, and it's going to have the pearloid pick guard and the pearloid cover Charlie Christian series Lawler pickups, and it's going to have some special electronics too. So this has got a kind of a violet blue metallic back and sides, and also about a 1-inch burst around the edge, which is hard to see, but it kind of ties in with the whole scene right there. So that's looking pretty sharp. So that's where we're at in the bodies, but now we're going to do the necks. All right, for me, the level and crowning process is a 10-step process. 10 steps to success. The first step is going to be removing the tape that we had applied to the fretboard when we were spraying the finishes on the neck. And the only tricky thing, and why I kind of made this a step, because I wanted to show you one thing, is right where the tape ends and the nut slot, and then we've got finish on that very little bit of the fretboard and then the headstock right there. That is a very common place to get the finish to tear out when you peel this tape off. So you have to be very, very, very careful. Okay, 3 carefuls. And so what I like to do is take that edge that is connected at the fretboard there, and I like to weaken the finish at that point. Now you could either use a small blade and just gently scrape on that tape to weaken it up. You don't want to take any wood off. You just want to weaken the finish that is on top of the tape so that it peels correctly. The other way is to take a stick like this, put a little piece of sandpaper on there, and just sand that leading edge. Now I've got 320 paper, so not super aggressive, but I'm going to sand it just enough to weaken that tape and the finish that's on it right there. And then I can start peeling all this tape off. All right, now we've got that tape off, and perfectly good removal of the tape over in that nut area, so no issues. That's why we do what I just showed you. Now the next step that I do is sometimes you got a little bit of finish that kind of creeps in under the tape. You're going to have to scrape that off, but it's okay because I was going to scrape anyway. I have maintained the sharp edges of my fretboard all the way up to this point. Now I'm going to scrape it off. Now let me back this up. If you've got a maple fretboard that you've finished, then you need to actually knock off those corners before you spray the finish, because you won't be able to do that obviously after the fact. But when you're using a dark fretboard like this, we can just now come back and we can scrape that finish off and then put just a light little chamfer on the fretboard. Just like a 45-degree angle, maybe 1 or 2 light swipes is all you need. Not much at all. All right, so here we have it. Cleaned up all the finish from the little corners and basically provided a very slight bevel along the edge of that fretboard. The second step of this process is now to make sure that this fretboard is perfectly flat. Now we can do it a couple different ways. If you are 100% sure that that fretboard was perfect before inserting those frets, you can use a tool like this, a notched level straight edge, notched straight edge. And you can place that right over top of that 25.5-inch scale, and you look at that from an angle, and I see I've got a huge gap in the center. I mean, that's like at least a 1/16 of an inch gap in the center. So I need to adjust this truss rod. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just use a regular straight edge and just double check that in fact the tops of all of the frets are level. I've either got a hump in the center or I've just got one bad fret. I don't have a hump in the center because I can see a gap. Okay, that looks pretty flat as much as I can tell at this stage. So step number 3 in this process is going to be to mask off the fretboard again. Now, this time the purpose of it is to leave the frets exposed, and it's just to protect the fretboard. You don't want all the metal dust getting into the fretboard, so that's just not good. So we are going to do that. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can do this. If you just got your standard 3/4 inch tape, you can, for these smaller sections where that's too wide, you can take that tape, you can split it in half-ish, you can slice it with a razor or whatever you want, and then you can put one of the good edges on one side and then flip the other one over so that you have another one of the good edges on that side, and that's how you can kind of cover it. Now, what I like to do is purchase 3 different widths, 3/4 inches, 1/2 inch, and 1/4 inch. And when I'm doing that, if I have a spot where one piece covers most of it, I can use then a smaller piece to cover the other part. Just like that. So it's kind of nice to have different widths of tape, and you can certainly get those from multiple places. These happen to come from StewMac, but again, you can get multiple widths of tape anywhere. All right, let's go ahead and send this into fast motion so that you can see this being done rapidly. All masked off to help protect the neck and the fretboard once we start the leveling and crowning process. All right, last class that I did at the school was on this exact subject, the leveling and crowning of the frets. Step 4, when I was in the class, was bring Steve a snack. Steve was getting hungry in class. And Steve is now speaking in the third person. But since you guys probably don't have the ability to bring me a snack, since most of you are from out of state or out of country, we're going to skip ahead to the next step, which is take a Sharpie and mark up the frets. The reason that we do this is in the leveling process, we do not want to take off any more than we absolutely have to. All right, so this marker gives us an indicator of when we are level, when there is at least a spot, no matter how small it is, where that Sharpie is removed after doing the leveling, then we know we are there. Another good reason for the masking tape on the fretboard, if you fall asleep while doing the Sharpie and you totally miss the fret, you're on the tape rather than marking up the fretboard. All All right, this brings us now to the step 5 of our 10-step process, and that is going to be to use a leveling beam to work back and forth and stop when there's at least a small sliver of black marker that is removed from the top of every single fret. Now, we can go with 220 or 320, somewhere around there is fine. I think I'm going to start with 320. Here's another little trick is as we do this, we can begin to see how well I had that fretboard leveled. So if I take a swipe and I see only the center or only the outside that is affected, then that's an issue. But actually I'm seeing, just on those 2 quick swipes, I'm seeing something removed from the top of every single one of them. So that's a good sign. So we'll continue working that back and forth. Now here's the critical thing, is you don't want to work parallel to the edge of the fretboard. You want to work parallel to the center line, because remember, this is all based upon a radius of that fretboard, and that radius is from the center line out, has nothing to do with the edge. You may find it easier to actually clamp the neck down as you're working it back and forth. A little bit more stable that way. But we've got it down now so that it at least knocked the center line of that marker off of every single fret. You could see which frets were higher because there was a lot more taken off of those, but we at least got it nice and level now. What if you're one of those guys that likes a lower action? Okay, what you need to do in those cases is take the last 5 or 6 frets and put a minor taper going down on them. So with a few pieces of tape on, in this case, the 3rd fret, and then I've only got about 6 frets worth of sandpaper that is exposed, I can now just work this one little area back and forth. And I'll come back one last time and use the Sharpie on the top. Now we're getting ready for step 7, where we actually will round over or crown the tops of all of these frets. All right, I'm going to use a diamond tool for this. A diamond tool will work with no matter what type of wire you're using, whether it be stainless steel like that one down there on the table, or this one is bronze. It'll work just the same on nickel, silver, whatever. So I prefer these. This is a StewMac Center Z file, and I'm going to look for the wider of the 2 sides, and I'm going to use that. The main thing here is we want to crown until we only have a sliver of a line left, and that looks pretty good. And then we're going to continue on all the way down each fret until we have about that same amount left over. I will also mention that if your eyes have a lot of experience in life, I'm not saying old, something like this helps. Really see those lines a whole lot better. Maybe there should be 11 steps here, because after I do the crowning, I want to double check my work with one of these guys, okay? A fret rocker. It basically has 4 different length sides so that you can grab 3 frets at any one time and place it and try to rock. I got a little bit of rock on this 2nd fret already, so I'm going to take that one down a little bit more. I'm going to continue on and check the rest of them. I still have to work on that one a little bit. I always check these in 3 different positions. Bass side, treble side, and center. And if I find a high spot, I'll go ahead and mark it. So in this case, the bass side of this 1 fret is a little bit high. So let's continue on. All right, I've just got 2 frets that I need to worry about, the 2nd fret and the 7th fret. And the 7th fret is just one end. The other one, pretty much the entire fret across, is high for some reason. I'm going to break out another tool. This is the StewMac Fret Kisser, just a new tool that came out this past year. It looked like a good idea. It had an introductory sale, so I went ahead and picked one up. But it has got a diamond portion on each of those 4 sides in the center. So when you find the high fret, like this one over here, I can simply take that I don't know if you hear that, but it's just grinding when I get to the very end of that fret. So that just flattened it out, and I can come back and crown that far side. And now that fret is perfect. All right, let's go ahead and use this kisser for the other one. All right, there we have it. Now we've got all of the frets verified that they are level, and we know we have them all crowned. Now we are ready to move on to step 8 of this 10 or 11 step process. I'm totally confused right now, but let's just go with 8 of 10. Step 8 is another one of these super repetitive processes. In fact, there's a lot of repetition involved with doing a good fret job, but in another sense, it's kind of therapeutic. You just kind of thinking about life, thinking about what you're going to have for dinner. It's actually not that bad. So at this point, now that I have the frets leveled and crowned and verified and recrowned in certain cases, or re-leveled, spot leveled and crowned in certain cases, now what I'm going to do is deburr the ends of the frets. And a tool like this is used. This is a safety file, small little square file. It's like, gosh, I don't know, 3/16 square, but 2 of the sides have no teeth in it, and then the other 2 have teeth. So what I'll do is I'll take the safety part on the fretboard, and then I'll attack it, I don't know, about a 20-30 degree angle, and I'll rotate my wrist. Okay, rotate, and I'll do that about 3 times on each side of the fret. I'll just work all the one side first, get my rotation in. Maybe it's as much as 45 degree angle. Now here's the tricky part. is getting your wrist to go the other direction. Step 9 of 10 is what I like to call the baseball card in the bicycle spoke trick. Does everybody know what that means? I actually asked my class that question, and there was one person that had no idea what I was talking about. Okay, save up those plastic cards that you get in the mail, okay? All those ones where they want you to buy something, they make you think you're getting a credit card in the mail, but it's really a card for you to buy insurance or something like that. But save up those cards. And now take what I prefer is pressure-sensitive adhesive sandpaper, okay, PSA paper, and I'll stick a section on there, and then I will begin rolling that up and down the fretboard. Everybody get why I call it the baseball card in the spoke trick? It's pretty cool, huh? And I will touch the edges again. I'm starting with 400 grit. You're going to have to continue to rotate this tape because it doesn't last long. It gets chewed up pretty quickly. You can start at 320 or 400. I've got 400 here, and I'm just going to double check that all the scratches from all the filing I did is gone. And I think it will be, but I'm going to work it a little bit more, and the longest amount of time you'll spend is in the lowest grit that you're using. From there on up, it gets a lot faster and easier. But I'm going to keep doing this here, and I'll move to a fast motion to make it look like I'm really, really fast at what I do. Plus, I don't want to bore everybody. So I'm going to probably spend another piece of sandpaper or two at 400 until it really looks like I got a nice, smooth crown on all of these. So everybody like the old baseball card and the bicycle spoke trick? I'm not sure if this is a common way to do it. Honestly, I don't know what everybody else does. If you do something different that you find effective, let me know. I learned this from a gentleman named Brian Deckenbach, the owner of Del Toro Guitars, who makes guitars for Big Head Todd and the Monsters. And Brian is crazy good at stuff. He can fix, repair, do just about anything with the guitar, and in really simple ways. So hats off to Brian. All right, after burning through sandpaper all the way up to 800 grit, I have these frets exactly where I want them. Nice and soft on the edges, nice and round, smooth, crowned on the top. Now the last step in our 10-step, maybe 11-step, because I lost count, process is I like to buff these. And I'm going to take this over to my buffer, I'm going to buff it, and then I'll be right back. All right, let's bring it in close. These are the bronze frets. After taken to the buffer, looks pretty amazing, doesn't it? Those ends are so nicely rounded. Everything is smooth and ready to bend strings. The bronze frets are actually very nice. They definitely feel like they're harder than nickel silver just by how long it took me to file, even with a diamond file. But no problems getting all the scratches out. No problems buffing and polishing them. So they're a winner. The bronze frets come from a company called Syntoms, which is out of Belarus. And they make a wide variety of different materials that I've never seen available anywhere else, so I like to experiment with different ones. This is the first time using the bronze. It will match the gold hardware on the guitar very well, and I like them. I do. I like them a lot. Let's we'll save our final endorsement for playability, but the way they polished up and the way they were to work, I'm pretty sure they're going to be nice and hard and a good performer. One thing I should have mentioned about the buffing, just in case it's not obvious, if you're going to buff any metal, do not use the same buffer as you're using for your guitar body. It will turn it black and it will be nasty and it will be only good for metal from there on out. So just in case you're thinking about going out and buying a buffing pad and doing both things with it, you need 2. So, in fact, you need 3. Medium grit, fine grit for the body, and then medium grit of compound with an old nasty buffing wheel works really well. So two last important things. This is a very long, tedious process. So have something healthy like fruit or something like that and keep your energy level up. That's good. Number 2, do not forget the most critical step here, and that is to feed the fretboard. This will be step 12 of our 10-step process, is we are going to get a little lemon oil and we're going to just squeeze that all over the place. And I like to just massage it in a little bit and let it sit and soak for a while and maybe do a second treatment to it. And I like to do all of these things before I do my final setup, so I just don't have to worry about it once the strings are in the way. And I can really let that lemon oil set and soak in there and saturate that fretboard, and that will look pretty awesome. And it'll feel good, right? So to wrap things up, how about a little eye candy? Not me, the guitar. So now that we got the fretboard all done, the frets all polished, the fretboard oiled down, Liza is ready for the final setup. I think she's going to be pretty. Next couple episodes are going to be electronics and then the final setup to include making of the nut. We're getting really close, maybe 2-3 episodes tops left, and then of course I'm going to put together a full demonstration of all the guitars I've been building and let you hear what each one of them sounds like. So until next time, remember, no matter what you do, start with excellence.